Welcome to our fun little study group for PP 5361 Theory and Management of Public Service Organizations. These are the readings from the required text, Managing Human Behavior in Public and Nonprofit Organizations, Chapter 6.
It's great to be here. And this chapter, this is really the one people have been waiting for. We've talked about organizational structure. We've gone through the history of bureaucracy.
All the foundations, yeah.
But today, we're getting to the engine, the thing that actually makes the whole machine run.
We are talking about motivation. And honestly, looking through the materials, it feels like the holy grail of management, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Every boss I've ever had seems to be on this endless quest for the magic wand that makes people want to work hard.
It's absolutely the big question. In fact, a major figure in this field, Robert Ben, he literally called it that back in 1995. He said motivation is one of the three big questions for all of public management.
And the question isn't just, how do I get people to do what I want? It's more subtle than that.
Yeah. Much more. Ben's phrasing was very specific. He asked, how do managers motivate employees, and he included citizens actually, to pursue public purposes with energy and intelligence?
Energy and intelligence. I love that phrasing because it's so true. You can force someone to show up and sit at a desk. That's easy.
Yeah.
But you can't force them to be creative or to be
Yeah.
energetic about solving a problem that comes up.
You can't. And that's where the stakes get really high. In the private sector, you could argue the ultimate motivation is profit, or at least that's the final scorecard.
Right, it's about the bottom line.
But the text makes a pretty heavy point right at the beginning here. In the public sector, it's not about profit. The quality of our neighborhoods, our communities, literally the state of the world depends on whether these employees are motivated.
The stakes feel so much higher when you put it that way.
They are. Think about it. If someone making widgets is unmotivated, well, maybe the company sells fewer widgets. Not great, but okay. But if a child protective services worker is unmotivated, a child could be left in a truly dangerous situation.
A life or death situation, potentially.
Exactly. But, and here's the big tension we have to get out on the table right away. There's this huge stereotype we have to bust before we can even get into the theories.
Oh, I know this one. The lazy bureaucrat. It's the punchline to 1,000 jokes.
The Parks and Rec caricature?
Yep. The idea that government workers are just punching a clock, counting down the days until their pension kicks in. They do the bare minimum because they have ironclad job security and you can't fire them.
It's a really pervasive cultural myth, but when you actually look at the research, and this is why we do these deep dives, right? It completely falls apart.
It's not based in reality.
Not at all. The source material brings up Norman Baldwin from the 80s, James Gayo from way back in the 60s. They did these comparisons, public versus private managers, and they found no evidence whatsoever that public servants are less motivated.
And Gayo's study found the opposite, if I remember correctly.
You're right, he did. He actually found that public managers often had a higher need for achievement than their corporate counterparts.
So what's the disconnect? Why does the stereotype exist if the data says the opposite?
I think it's because the nuance gets lost. They aren't unmotivated. They are differently motivated. If you go in with the private sector playbook and try to motivate a public servant with, say, the promise of a massive Christmas bonus, you're probably going to find that it falls flat.
Because that's not why they're there.
It's not their primary driver. But if you can tap into the mission, into the why of the work, well, that's a whole different story. That's a deep well of motivation.
So if we accept that the stereotype is wrong and that these employees do want to achieve something, why does it sometimes look like they don't? What's going wrong?
And that's the million-dollar question. Often it's the system, not the person. The rules, the red tape, the lack of resources. But let's make this practical. The text sets up this brilliant case study, the unemployment office scenario.
I love this part. It felt like the cast of a workplace sitcom, but, a really stressful one where nothing gets done. It's a manager's nightmare.
It really is. So let's set the scene for you. Imagine you're the new supervisor walking into this office on day one, and your team is, let's just call them eclectic.
Eclectic is a very polite word for it. Okay, so first up, you've got Susan.
Tell us about Susan.
Susan is meticulous. She is incredibly careful. She treats every single form like it's a sacred document. The upside is she never, ever makes a mistake.
And the downside?
She moves at a glacial pace. She's the perfectionist bottleneck. Everything piles up on her desk.
Okay, who's next?
Then you have Marilyn. She's the polar opposite, lightning fast. She processes a huge number of applications. Her numbers are incredible, but she's rude to the clients. She's brusque. She's dismissive. She basically treats them like an inconvenience.
The classic quantity versus quality trade-off. Got it.
Then there's Mark. Mark's work is fine. It's average. But his real passion is starting office wars over what he calls environmental issues.
You mean like saving the planet?
No, I mean the office
Yeah.
environment. A fan is blowing his papers around. He can smell someone's tuna sandwich from across the room. He's constantly feuding with people about the thermostat.
Every office has a Mark. The person who's more invested in the temperature than the quarterly report.
Exactly. He's a walking distraction. And don't forget Tom.
Tom the rookie.
Right. Fresh out of school, full of energy, wants to save the world. He has all this passion, but absolutely zero judgment.
What do you do?
The book says he let someone cut to the front of a very long line just because they complained loudly, which, predictably, almost started a riot.
Oh, Tom. And that leaves us with the final boss of difficult employees.
Hank.
The cynic.
Oh, he's more than a cynic. Hank hates the job. He makes it clear he hates the clients, and he really, really hates me, the new boss he's never met.
How do you know?
He has these passive-aggressive slogans tacked to his cubicle wall. These like, only insecure supervisors refuse to delegate.
Bruh.
He's smart, you can tell, but he is just radiating toxicity.
So that's your team. A perfectionist, a speed demon, a professional complainer, a naive rookie, and a brilliant cynic.
Yep. And then the phone rings. It's central office. Your district is expanding, so your office's workload is about to double.
And you get more staff to handle it, right?
Of course not. Zero new staff. Oh, and by the way, you also have to cut your overall error rate by 10%.
So, double the work, same team, and be more accurate.
Exactly. So the big question is, how on earth do you motivate this specific group of people to pull that off?
When you lay it all out like that, my first instinct is to just walk out and never come back.
Right. But we can't. We have to manage them.
Yeah.
So let's look at the toolkit the chapter gives us. It starts with some foundational definitions. What's the actual difference between being motivated and just being satisfied with your job?
This is such a critical distinction, and I think a lot of managers get it wrong. Job satisfaction is a feeling. It's an attitude about the past or the present. I liked my work yesterday, or I'm comfortable in my chair right now.
It's passive.
It's very passive. Motivation, on the other hand, is a state of mind that drives future action. It's an energy, a desire. You can be very, very satisfied with your job because the pay is good and you get to sit around and do nothing all day. That does not mean you are motivated to perform.
I've definitely known people like that. And the text gives us this little equation. Performance equals motivation plus ability plus opportunity.
It's a multiplication problem, really, which is key. If any one of those three things is a zero, your performance is zero.
Okay, so give me an example. Let's use Susan, the slow one.
Okay. If Susan is slow because she literally lacks the ability to type faster, no amount of pep talks or bonuses motivation is going to fix that. She needs a typing class. Her ability is the problem.
And opportunity.
That's about the environment and the tools. If the government's computer system is from 1998 and it crashes every 10 minutes, that's a lack of opportunity. It doesn't matter how motivated or skilled you are if the tools don't work.
So as a manager, you can't always control ability, but you can influence motivation and opportunity.
That's where you have leverage. So, assuming your people have the basic ability and the tools work, we can finally zoom in on motivation.
Let's start with the absolute classics, Maslow, the pyramid. We all learned this in Psych 101, didn't we?
We did. Physiological needs like food and water at the bottom, then safety, then love and belonging, esteem, and finally self-actualization at the very top.
Right. It's almost a cliche at this point.
It is, but there's a rule baked into Maslow's theory that I think managers often forget. It's called the prepotent rule. Maslow's big line was, man is a perpetually wanting animal.
Meaning we always want something.
Right. But the key insight is this. Once a need is substantially met, it no longer motivates.
So if I'm starving and you offer me a sandwich, that is extremely motivating. I will do almost anything for that sandwich.
Highest possible motivation.
But if I've just finished a 5-course meal and I'm scuffed, and you offer me that same sandwich, it does nothing for me. It's just a sandwich.
Precisely. And this explains why standard benefits packages often stop motivating people after a while. If your employees already feel physically safe and their salary covers their basic needs,
Which covers the bottom 2 levels of the pyramid.
exactly, then offering them more safety in the form of, say, slightly better health insurance probably isn't going to make them work any harder. You've satisfied that need. To motivate them, you have to move up the pyramid.
To belonging, esteem, or self-actualization.
Now you're talking about making them feel part of a team, giving them recognition for good work or giving them challenging assignments that help them grow.
So for my unemployment office team, if they're all civil servants with tenure threatening their job security, the safety level is probably pointless. They know they're safe.
It has no teeth. But appealing to their sense of esteem or their desire to belong to a high-performing team, now that might work.
This connects directly to McGregor's theories, right?
Mm-hmm.
Theory X versus Theory Y. This feels like the ultimate old-school boss versus modern leader debate.
It really is. And Douglas McGregor wasn't just describing management styles. He said these were fundamental, deep-seated assumptions that managers make about human nature itself.
Okay, so walk us through Theory X. I feel like I've definitely worked for a Theory X boss.
Most of us have, unfortunately. A Theory X manager assumes that people are naturally lazy. They believe employees inherently dislike work, lack ambition, avoid responsibility, and must be coerced, controlled, or threatened with punishment to get anything done.
The classic carrot and stick approach. Do this or you're fired.
Exactly. And the real tragedy of Theory X is that it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you treat people like untrustworthy children who can't think for themselves,
They start acting like untrustworthy children.
they do. They stop taking initiative. They wait to be told what to do. They hide their mistakes because they're afraid of being punished. You create the very behavior you assumed was there in the first place.
That sounds exactly like how Hank, the cynic, probably expects to be treated. He's already braced for it.
Hank lives in a Theory X world, in his own mind. But Theory Y is the complete opposite. It's a radically different set of assumptions.
Which are?
Theory Y assumes that for most people, work is as natural as play or rest. It assumes people will exercise self-direction and self-control if they are committed to the objectives. It assumes people not only accept, but actively seek responsibility.
So, from a Theory Y perspective, if my team isn't motivated, it's not because they're fundamentally flawed people. It's because I, as the manager, haven't created the right conditions for them to thrive.
That is the hard, revolutionary truth of Theory Y McGregor's massive insight, was that if your employees are acting lazy and uninspired, it's far more likely to be a failure of management and organizational design than a failure of individual character.
That is a tough pill for a lot of managers to swallow. It's easier to blame the employees.
It's always easier to blame someone else. But okay, that leads us perfectly into Hertzberg. For me, this was the biggest aha moment in this whole section of the text, the two-factor theory.
This one really changed how I thought about things.
It's a game changer. Because before Hertzberg, everyone assumed that job satisfaction and dissatisfaction were two ends of a single spectrum. You know, like a dimmer switch. If you reduce the things people hate, they'll be more satisfied.
And Hertzberg said, nope, wrong.
Totally wrong. He argued that the things that make you satisfied and happy at work are a completely different set of factors from the things that make you dissatisfied and miserable. It's not one dimmer switch, it's two separate switches.
He called them hygiene factors and motivators.
Yes. And the names are important. Think of hygiene factors as the basic maintenance issues in the workplace. Things like your salary, the physical working conditions, company policies, your status, the quality of your supervisor.
Why call them hygiene?
It's a great metaphor. Think about personal hygiene, like brushing your teeth. Does brushing your teeth make you an Olympic athlete or super healthy? No.
It just prevents you from getting cavities. It's preventative.
Exactly. It prevents a bad state illness. In the same way, good hygiene factors at work, a decent salary, a comfortable office, don't make you motivated. They just prevent you from being actively dissatisfied.
Okay, let's apply this. Mark in our office, who is fighting about the fans and the food smells.
Mark is 100% obsessed with hygiene factors. The working conditions are making him miserable. Now, if you fix the fan and implement a no-tuna rule, what happens?
Mark stops complaining.
Right. But does he suddenly become a superstar employee who doubles his workload?
No. He's just not mad anymore. He's neutral.
Precisely. You have removed the source of dissatisfaction, but you have not added an ounce of motivation. To get motivation, you need the second list of factors, the motivators.
And these are the things that are intrinsic to the work itself.
Yes. Things like a sense of achievement, getting recognition for your work, the nature of the work itself being interesting, having real responsibility, opportunities for growth and advancement. These are the things that create genuine satisfaction and drive performance.
So to motivate Susan or Tom from the office, I can't just give them a nicer chair or fix the flickering lights. That's just hygiene. I have to enrich their jobs.
Job enrichment. That is the key term from Hertzberg. It means deliberately building those motivators into the design of the job. giving people more autonomy, letting them complete a whole piece of work from start to finish instead of just one repetitive step.
This feels huge because so many managers spend all their time and energy on the hygiene factors. Planning the company picnic, allowing casual Fridays, fighting for slightly better parking spots.
And they do all that thinking it's going to boost productivity, and then they're shocked when it doesn't. They're just polishing the cage. To get real performance, Herzberg says you have to look at the work itself. Is it meaningful? Is it challenging? Does it allow for growth?
Okay, before we move into the more cognitive stuff, let's quickly touch on McClelland. He had a different take, saying our needs aren't hardwired like in Maslow's pyramid, they're learned.
Yes, David McClelland's theory is that our life experiences teach us to value certain drivers over others. He focused on three main ones: the need for achievement, the need for power, and the need for affiliation.
And we all have a mix of these, but usually one is dominant.
Right. So let's take Marilyn from your team, the rude speed demon.
Okay?
Marilyn almost certainly has a very high need for achievement, or NACH as they call it. She loves moderately difficult tasks where she can get immediate, concrete feedback on her performance. She wants the scorecard. I processed 50 applications today, and yesterday I only did 48. That's what gets her out of bed.
But her rudeness to clients is a huge problem.
Of course, because from her perspective, the clients are just obstacles. They are slowing her down from reaching her numerical goal. So if you're her manager, a lecture about customer service is useless.
Oh, what do I do?
You change the game, you change the scorecard, you introduce a new goal, a new metric for achievement. Maybe it's a customer satisfaction score. Now, to achieve her goal, she has to be nice. You've aligned her core driver with the organization's goal.
That's clever. And the need for power.
These are people who want to have influence and impact. They care about status, prestige, and controlling the situation. They aren't necessarily bossy, but they want to be in charge of their own destiny and direct others.
And affiliation.
The need for affiliation, or NF, is about wanting to be liked. These people thrive on friendly interactions, they prefer collaboration over competition, and they absolutely hate conflict.
That sounds like Tony from the text, the social organizer, the one who plans all the office parties and potlucks, but maybe doesn't get a ton of her own work done.
Exactly. And a traditional manager might see Tony as a slacker, but a smart manager sees that her primary driver is affiliation. So you don't motivate her by sticking her in a corner cubicle to focus. That would crush her spirit.
You put her on a team?
You put her on a team where her role is to be the social glue. Maybe she's the liaison between departments or the person who does initial client intake. You leverage her natural strength instead of fighting it. It's all about tailoring the motivation to the individual's learned driver.
Okay, this is a great foundation. But now let's shift gears. The next part of the chapter moves away from these internal needs and gets into the mental gymnastics people do, the cognitive calculation. Let's start with expectancy theory.
Victor Vroom's expectancy theory. I call this the rational calculation model because it treats motivation not as a deep-seated need, but as a conscious, logical choice. It argues that before we put in any effort, we run a little math problem in our heads.
And the formula is something like motivation equals valence times expectancy times instrumentality.
Yes, and please don't let the jargon scare you. It's basically just a checklist of 3 questions an employee asks themselves, often subconsciously, before they decide to try hard.
Okay, what's question 1?
Question 1 is expectancy. This is the link between effort and performance. The question is, if I put in the effort, do I believe I can actually succeed at this task?
It's about self-confidence.
It's about self-confidence, ability, and resources. If I, as your boss, tell you I'll give you $1 million if you jump over the moon, what's your motivation level?
0. Because I know it's impossible. My expectancy is 0.
Right. So let's bring it back to Susan, the slow but careful worker. If you tell her, Susan, you need to double your speed by Friday, she might honestly believe deep down, I physically can't do that without making a ton of mistakes. Her expectancy is 0.
And because it's a multiplication problem in the formula, if any of the 3 parts is 0.
The total motivation is 0. She won't even try. As her manager, you can't just cheerlead. You have to fix that belief first, maybe with training or by showing her a new technique or by breaking the task down into smaller, more manageable steps to build her confidence.
Okay, so once I believe I can do the task, what's question 2?
Question 2 is instrumentality. This is the link between performance and outcome. The question now is, if I successfully complete this task, do I actually trust that I will get the promised reward?
This one is all about trust in the system and in management.
100%. And this is Hank's issue.
Zynic.
Definitely. Hank might have very high expectancy. He might know he's perfectly capable of doing the work, but he believes management is incompetent, or plays favorites, or is just plain dishonest. He thinks even if I knock it out of the park, they'll just give the promotion to the boss's nephew anyway. My hard work won't be rewarded.
So his instrumentality is zero. And again, the whole motivation equation goes to zero.
It's dead in the water. No amount of promises will work until you rebuild that fundamental trust.
Okay, and the third and final question.
Valence. This is the simplest one. It's about the outcome itself. The question is, do I actually value the reward being offered?
Right. Do I even want it? If my company's big reward is Employee of the Month, and that means getting my picture on the wall and giving a speech at the all-hands meeting,
And you're a massive introvert who hates public speaking.
then the valence is negative. I might actually work less hard to actively avoid winning that reward.
This happens all the time. Managers have a go-to set of rewards money, a plaque, a promotion, and they assume everyone wants them. But a lot of public servants, for example, don't want to be promoted into management because it takes them away from the hands-on mission work they actually love. The reward of a promotion has low or even negative valence for them.
So you have to know your people, you have to know what they actually value.
You have to. Otherwise, your entire motivational strategy can backfire.
Okay, so that leads us pretty naturally into goal-setting theory. Locke and Latham. I feel like the most common managerial advice ever is just do your best. And this research says that's basically the worst advice you can give.
Do your best is a garbage goal. It's completely subjective. What does best even mean? Does it mean staying until midnight? Does it mean making zero mistakes? Does it mean being the fastest? Without a clear target, it's meaningless.
Or what does work?
The research here is incredibly clear and has been replicated hundreds of times. The most effective goals have two characteristics. They are specific and they are difficult.
Difficult, not impossible, right?
That's a key distinction. Challenging, but attainable. If a goal is too easy, it's boring and doesn't inspire any extra effort. But if a goal is specific and difficult, like reduce the average client processing time from 15 minutes to 12 minutes by the end of the month, it does something powerful psychologically.
What's that?
It creates a gap. It shows you a clear discrepancy between where you are now and where you need to be. That gap creates a kind of constructive dissatisfaction, a tension that your brain wants to resolve,
Yeah.
and it resolves it by driving effort.
But this feels really tricky in the public sector. So many of our goals are inherently ambiguous. Improve public health, enhance community safety, serve the public.
That is the core challenge. Serve the public is a mission statement, not a goal. A manager's job in that context is to translate that vague mission into specific, difficult goals for their team. In our unemployment office, the goal from headquarters, reduce errors by 10%, is actually a pretty good goal. It's specific.
But what if the team doesn't buy into it?
That's the other crucial piece of the theory. The goals must be accepted by the employees. If you just drop a really hard goal on a cynical team like Hank's without any discussion or buy-in, they'll just reject it out of hand as unreasonable.
So you need to involve them in setting it.
Or at least do a very good job of explaining why it's important and demonstrating that you believe it's achievable.
Okay, let's talk about the last cognitive theory, which feels like the source of most office drama. Equity theory. The comparison game.
It really is. Adams's equity theory from the 1960s is based on a simple premise. We are social creatures who are obsessed with fairness. We don't just look at what we get for our work in a vacuum.
We're constantly looking over at the next cubicle.
Constantly. The theory says we're always calculating a ratio in our heads. My inputs divided by my outcomes.
So inputs would be things like how hard I work, my level of education, the stress I take on, the hours I put in.
Right. And outcomes are everything you get back. Your salary, your benefits, your status, the recognition you receive, even the quality of your parking spot.
And once I have that ratio for myself,
You immediately compare it to the ratio of a referent other. Usually it's Bob in the next cubicle or someone with a similar job. And if those two ratios don't match, you experience something called inequity tension.
let's play it out. I look at Bob. I see that my inputs are way higher. I work longer hours. I have more experience. But our outcomes are exactly the same. We get the same paycheck.
You are experiencing underpayment inequity, and the theory says this creates a powerful feeling of anger and frustration. It's a psychological tension that you are highly motivated to resolve. You have to restore the balance.
And since I probably can't just march into the boss's office and demand a raise to increase my outcomes, what do?
You restore balance by lowering your inputs. You start taking longer lunches. You stop volunteering for extra projects. You start leaving right at 5:00 p.m. on the dot. Subconsciously or consciously, you're thinking, fine, if I'm getting paid the same as Bob, I'm going to work exactly as hard as Bob.
Or I suppose I could try to get Bob fired.
Yeah.
Or just quit.
Those are also common reactions. People will do almost anything to resolve that feeling of being treated unfairly.
The text mentioned the flip side, though, which I found fascinating. Overpayment inequity. The idea that if I find out I'm being paid more than Bob for the exact same work, I should feel guilty.
Theoretically, yes. The theory predicts you would feel a tension of guilt, and you'd be motivated to restore equity by increasing your inputs, working harder, staying later to justify your higher pay.
Does that ever actually happen in the real world?
In laboratory studies, sometimes, but in the real world, it's incredibly rare. We humans are masters of rationalization.
We find a way to justify it.
We immediately tell ourselves, well, my work quality is higher than Bob's, or I bring a better attitude to the team, or I have more potential. We psychologically distort our own inputs to make the equation balance. We are very, very good at talking ourselves out of feeling guilty about being overpaid.
Classic. Okay, part 3. Let's talk about rewards. Let's talk about money. Or maybe let's not talk about money, because this is where the chapter gets really counterintuitive for the public sector.
This is one of the most important findings for any public manager to understand. We are raised in a culture that assumes money is the primary motivator. And look, for very simple, boring, repetitive tasks, stuffing envelopes, assembling widgets on a line, it is. Skinner's reinforcement theory works perfectly there. Do the thing, get the pellet.
But for complex, creative, or mission-driven jobs,
For those kinds of jobs, which describes most public service work, you run into a dangerous phenomenon called the crowding out effect.
okay, unpack that for me. What gets crowded out?
Your intrinsic motivation. A study by Weibel and her colleagues found something amazing. If you take a task that is inherently interesting, something you might do because you enjoy the challenge or because you believe in its purpose, and then I start offering you a pay-for-performance bonus for doing it, your performance on that task can actually go down.
Wait. So paying me more to do a good job makes me do a worse job. How is that possible?
It fundamentally changes your psychological relationship with the task. You stop thinking about the mission or the joy of solving the problem or the person you're helping. You start thinking, what's the bare minimum I have to do to get the cash? It shifts your focus from purpose to transaction. It crowds out the deeper, more powerful intrinsic drive.
It cheapens it.
It completely cheapens it. I love the analogy of helping a friend move. You do it because you're a good friend. It's about relationship and generosity. You feel good about it. But imagine if, at the end of the day, your friend pulls out his wallet and hands you $20.
I feel insulted.
Exactly. All of a sudden, you're not a good friend anymore. You're just a cheap mover. The money didn't add to the motivation. It replaced and degraded it.
And in the public sector, the budget constraints are so tight that the bonuses are usually tiny anyway.
Right. A $50 bonus at the end of the year isn't life-changing money, but it's just enough to trigger that transactional mindset and kill the intrinsic motivation that was doing all the heavy lifting in the first place. The conclusion from Perry, Engvers, and June is pretty damning. They say that performance-related pay in the public sector consistently fails to deliver on its promise.
So if we can't just bribe Susan and Hank to work harder, what's left? This brings us to part 4, which you called the secret sauce earlier. Public service motivation, or PSM.
This is it. This is the holy grail for management in government and nonprofits. Perry and Wise defined PSM back in 1990 as essentially an individual's predisposition to respond to motives that are grounded primarily in public institutions and organizations.
In plain English, some people are just wired differently. They're wired to want to serve.
That's a great way to put it. They have a different motivational architecture, and the theory breaks it down into 3 types of PSM. First, there's the rational type.
What drives them?
They get satisfaction from participating in the policy process. They love the game. They're motivated by advocating for a cause or seeing a policy they believe in come to life. These are your policy wonks.
Okay. What's the second type?
The second is norm-based. This is all about a sense of duty, loyalty, and social equity. These are people who are motivated by the idea of serving the public interest because it's the right thing to do. It's a moral obligation for them.
And the third?
The third is affective. This is pure emotion. It's a deep, personal, emotional connection to the importance of a program. This is the person who works for the Parks Department because they truly love nature, or the person at the food bank who cannot stand the thought of people in their community going hungry. It's a true belief in the cause.
So, as a manager, why is it so important for me to know this exists?
Because the research, like the study from Bullock, Stritch, and Rainey, shows that employees with high PSM are fundamentally different. They consistently rank helping others as more important than high income. They're more likely to volunteer in their free time. They don't just talk the talk, they walk the walk.
So my strategy for motivating Tom, the enthusiastic rookie in my office, shouldn't be, if you process 10 more claims, you get a pizza party.
No, that's trivializing his core drive. The strategy has to be connecting his daily tasks to the mission. The text gives this great advice. Don't just tell people what to do, constantly explain why it helps the community.
So Susan isn't just processing a form. She is ensuring a family can buy groceries next week.
Yes, that's the reframe. If you can take that paperwork pusher mentality and transform it into a lifeline provider identity, you tap into that deep well of public service motivation. And that is an energy source that doesn't run dry the way a small cash bonus does. If you can show Tom how his work directly prevented someone from being evicted, you've hooked him. That's real motivation.
But is there a dark side to all this?
Yeah.
Part 5 of the chapter raises a pretty pointed critique. Is all this motivation theory just a fancy form of manipulation?
It's a very fair and important question. A writer named James Markham argues that a lot of traditional motivation theory is paternalistic. It treats employees like objects to be stimulated, like lab rats. It assumes they are inert and static until we, the brilliant managers, come along and poke them with a carrot or a stick.
He calls it episodic, right? Meaning you have to keep doing it over and over.
Yes, it's like trying to start a lawnmower with a pull cord. You pull, it runs for a bit, and it sputters and dies. So you have to pull the cord again. It's not self-sustaining.
So what's the alternative?
The shift in modern thinking is to move away from motivation, which is something you do to people, and toward engagement, which is about creating the conditions for people to motivate themselves.
And this is where Daniel Pink's famous trio comes in. Autonomy, mastery, and purpose.
The new trifecta. These are the modern intrinsic drivers. Autonomy is the desire to direct our own lives. So for Susan, don't micromanage how she checks her forms. Give her the goal zero errors and let her figure out the best path.
Mastery is the urge to get better at something that matters.
And purpose is the yearning to do what we do in the service of something larger than ourselves. You replace the carrots and sticks with these 3 things.
I also love the progress principle that the chapter brought up, from Amabile and Kramer.
Oh, it's one of my favorite pieces of research. They had workers keep daily diaries for months, thousands of entries, and they analyzed them to find the #1 driver of a good day at work.
And it wasn't a raise or a compliment from the boss.
Not even close. The single most powerful motivator was simply making progress in meaningful work.
Just feeling like you got something done. Small wins.
That's it. The feeling of moving forward, even a tiny step. So as a manager, one of your most important jobs is to be a progress enabler. Remove obstacles. Fix the broken printer. Get an answer from another department. Cut through the red tape. Anything that allows your team to feel that forward momentum is more motivating than 1,000 inspirational posters.
And on the flip side, managers can be progress destroyers. The chapter mentions Bailey and Madden's list of 7 ways to destroy meaning.
It's a perfect how-to guide for ruining your team's morale. Things like taking employees for granted, giving them pointless work that you know will be ignored, or overriding their better judgment without explanation.
That one about overriding their judgment feels huge for Tom, our rookie. If he comes up with a creative idea and we just shut it down because we've always done it this way, we're not just rejecting an idea, we're sending a message.
You're teaching him that his brain doesn't matter here. Just do what you're told. And once you destroy that sense of meaning, all you're left with is the paycheck. And as we've established in the public sector, that's usually not enough to keep the best people.
There was one more modern approach mentioned, strengths-based management from the Gallup organization. The core idea is, stop trying to fix people's weaknesses.
It completely flips the script on traditional management. Conventional wisdom says, okay, you're great with people, but you're terrible at Excel. So we're sending you to 3 days of mandatory Excel training.
Right, let's fix your flaw.
Strength-based management says, you're terrible at Excel and you'll probably always be mediocre at it, but you're a genius at de-escalating angry clients. So let's have Marilyn, who loves spreadsheets, do the Excel work, and we'll put you in charge of handling all our most difficult clients.
That would be a perfect strategy for Tony the socializer. Instead of nagging her about her paperwork, put her in charge of community outreach or new client intake.
Exactly. You leverage what people are naturally good at instead of trying to force them into a mold they don't fit. The Gallup research found that managers who focus on their employees' strengths double their odds of having engaged employees. You stop fighting their nature and start using it.
Okay, before we get to our final takeaways, we should briefly mention the integrative theories. The one that really stood out to me was the one that added time to the equation. Temporal motivation theory.
Right, from Steele and Koenig. This is the theory that finally explains procrastination. It basically adds a time delay variable to the expectancy theory formula. It's based on a concept called pico-economics,
Which means?
which means we are terrible at valuing future rewards. We heavily discount the value of something if we have to wait for it.
This is me putting off writing a report because the deadline is a month away.
That's everyone. The motivation to work on it is low because the reward, or the punishment of missing the deadline, is too far in the future. But as the deadline gets closer and closer, that time delay shrinks, the value of completing it skyrockets, and suddenly you have a massive spike of motivation the night before it's due.
So as a manager, setting a big deadline for next quarter is basically an invitation for my team to do nothing for 2 months?
It is. If you want to keep motivation high, you need interim deadlines. You need smaller milestones along the way. You have to bring the future closer to the present.
And finally, we can't ignore the generational differences. We might have boomers, Gen X, and Gen Z all in the same office.
You have to be careful with generalizations, but they provide useful context. Boomers, for instance, tend to be more competitive, loyal to the organization, and responsive to public recognition and status.
And the millennials.
The big thing with millennials is they want meaning now. They are generally not willing to pay their dues, doing what they see as meaningless grunt work for 10 years, hoping to eventually get an interesting assignment. They want to know the why on day one, and they value work-life balance immensely.
What about Gen Z, the newest group entering the workforce?
They are the first true digital natives, the on-demand generation. They grew up with ubiquitous technology and expect instant access to information and seamless digital tools. If your government office is still running on archaic software and paper forms, you're not just going to seem inefficient to them, you're going to seem incompetent. You'll lose their respect for the entire system.
Wow, okay. We have covered a ton of ground here. Needs, calculations, fairness, the problem with money, the power of service, engagement, time. So let's bring it all home. What's the final verdict? How do I, as the new supervisor, handle my unemployment office nightmare team?
The big verdict is, there is no silver bullet. There is no one magic motivation switch you can flip for everyone. Your job as a manager is to be a good diagnostician. You have to figure out why a specific employee isn't motivated before you can prescribe a solution.
Okay, so let's do a lightning round, one last time, for each character. Susan, the slow perfectionist.
First, diagnose the problem. Is it ability? Maybe she genuinely needs training on the new software. If not, it's probably expectancy. She lacks the confidence that she can work faster without failing. Your job is to build her self-efficacy with small wins and encouragement.
Marilyn, the fast but rude one.
Her driver is need for achievement. She loves hitting her numbers. So you have to change the numbers. Make customer satisfaction scores a key part of her performance metric. To win, she now has to be nice. You've got to align her driver with your goal.
Mark, the guy fighting about the office temperature.
He's stuck on hygiene factors, so just fix the fan, seriously. Remove the dissatisfier. It won't motivate him, but it will stop the distraction. Then you can try to find a task he actually finds intrinsically meaningful to maybe trigger some real motivation.
Tom, the rookie with passion but no judgment.
He's bursting with public service motivation. Your job is to channel that energy, connect his work directly to the mission, but provide clear guardrails. Give him autonomy, but within a safe sandbox where his bad judgment can't cause a disaster. Let him own his work within clear boundaries.
And that leaves Hank, the brilliant toxic cynic who hates me.
Hank is the ultimate test. You have to try. You have to try to rebuild trust, to fix his sense of instrumentality. You do that by being fair, by being transparent, by keeping your promises, by showing him that good work is rewarded. But you also have to be realistic and ask a very hard question.
And that brings us to our final provocative thought for you, the listener.
Right. We've spent this whole time talking about motivation as if it's something we, as managers, can do to other people. But if, at its core, motivation is truly internal, an intrinsic drive, can you ever really motivate someone like Hank, who seems to have made a conscious choice to be disengaged and hostile?
Or is the manager's real job in that situation Not to motivate, but to recognize a fundamental poor fit.
Exactly. At what point is the most effective and maybe even the kindest thing you can do for the team, for the organization, and even for Hank himself to help him find happiness and a better fit somewhere else?
When do you stop trying to light the fire and just accept that the wood is wet?
That's the question. There isn't an easy answer.
And for you listening at home, which theory best explains your behavior today? Did you listen to this deep dive because you have a test coming up and want a good grade, expectancy? Was it because you genuinely love learning about organizational behavior, intrinsic motivation? Or maybe you just didn't want to feel left out of the study group, need for affiliation? Something to think about. Thanks for joining us.
See you next time.